Yes, yes. What's up, Coach?
What's happening, Dr. Coach Pat
Oh,
Ivey?
come on, don't start it off like
I
that.
need the PhD too.
Hey, let's go. Let's go.
I
It's a few classes and a ridiculously long paper that you
it's a
got to
few
write.
man. I don't know about a few classes. But I have been thinking. And so first of all, man, I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh, I
You know,
appreciate that.
I think when we meet in person, we're gonna end up like talking. We'll be like, yo, it's 3 a.m. We gotta go to bed.
we got to get back. We're back up at 6.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Coach, I was I was in a hotel room when I first got here to Louisville and check the mail, and I go to open it. Coach Zach Evanish. All right, okay. Like, all right, well, let me open it up. It was a book. You signed it. Man, I can't tell you because I was in a hotel room. My family was still in Missouri. So, it was
Oh,
just me in a hotel room for months.
months.
So when you sent that, man, that's one of those things that it hit a little bit harder. Just a little bit
Yeah.
harder. So I appreciate it.
I think I sent it after listening to your podcast with, did Brandon interview you or did Bert interview you for the Be Legendary?
Probably
Man,
Brandon,
what's
Lily.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And so your podcast, that interview, maybe it was, you know what it was? I think I know what it was, Coach. It was the presentation from Summer Strong that they utilized the audio from. And you were talking about training in your basement, putting on the Public Enemy, kind of going back to your roots and your little gym with a power rack, just real simple. And I was like, man, sometimes that's what like cleanses the soul again
Yeah.
is you're trying to just go back to your roots and making it pure again, reminding yourself where you started and what it really is about. Now, when I heard that, I was like, I just connect with that stuff right away.
Yeah. For me, that reflection is something I ran from, I was 13. That was young. That was the young guy. That was the guy, the kid that was getting bullied. I mean, I'm past that. But you know what? Life has this way of reminding you that there's challenges and difficulties that are going to come. And so who you uh, who I formed myself to be, I found myself going back to that and finding it's okay. It's
It
so
is okay.
emotionally, it's okay to reconnect with
Yeah.
that 13-year-old Pat, and to find something in that to help push me to the next thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know. It's like, I'm 45. I think we're about the same
yeah,
age, right?
yeah. I'm a couple years older.
A couple of years
Yeah,
older. And so I was talking with my wife the other night. And anytime people ask me too, I'm like, I didn't think I'd be working so much harder in my mid 40s than I was late 20s, early 30s. I would be like, man, I'd probably be coasting right now. Like I'd have it all figured out. And whatever I had in my 30s would be much better in my mid 40s. And I'm like, man, I'm working like crazy, you
mhm,
know? And so sometimes I like just go back to the purity because you get busy, you get stressed out, and you're all that stress kind of makes everything look foggy, a lot of haze. And I'm like, just go back to, care about the kids, take care of the kids. Kids are number one. And that always, brings me back to kind of like square one, just like do take care of the kids. And so it's good for the soul.
yeah. So when we had a chance to talk, and I got a chance to know you a little bit better, and I went back and listened to your interview, a podcast that you had done.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, okay, there's something deeper. There's something special that is rooted in how do you help someone? I said, I can connect with somebody. I
Right.
can connect with you. So I guess a lot of people speak in the abstract, Coach. I mean, can you go deep for me? I mean, who are you? Like, what's
Yeah.
in there? What's in there that when that alarm clock goes off in the morning,
Oh yeah.
And you might be a little sore, a little tired.
Oh
And
yeah.
what is it that makes you go, get yourself out of bed right now? What
Yeah.
is what take? I mean, what's
I'll
in
I'll
there?
I'll take you. Bring it, man.
Okay.
So tomorrow will be the first time I wake up at 6 a.m. Normally I'm waking up at 5, but the dogs will probably wake me up at 5:15. They don't care.
Hmm.
So normally I wake up early before my goal is always get up before the dogs want to even get off the couch, get work done. But why would I wake up early? I put it on me to be a great dad, a coach. At the end of the day, all the coaching, the effort I put in, I want my kids to see the effort because I'll be honest, where we grew up, my wife and I grew up in the same town. We didn't know each other until, we were in our 20s, but that town's not so good anymore. And, that town's like, if you don't escape that town, I felt like it would consume you and break you, and just not a lot of good stuff comes out of being in that town. But it used to be a very blue collar, hardworking, you keep growing, and then it changed. And so when my daughter was a baby, we would drive down to this town that we live in now, and I'd see kids in packs riding on beach cruisers. And I remember like driving by a group of kids, and I was like, oh yeah, they're going to throw something at the car. They're going to give me the finger when I drive by. And they were
Yeah.
like waving to me. I was like, the hell's wrong with those kids? And so I remember saying, I want my kids to grow up in a place where I could say, go ride your bike to the beach, go ride your bike through town. It was safe. And then, here we are. My kids are 12 and 14. And I'm like, all right, like my son's never been punched in the face. There's never been a fight in his school ever. There's no threat. There's no challenge. And so I feel that I take a lot of pride in this work ethic. I also coach. I don't think it's the healthiest work ethic, but right now I'm doing what needs to be done because of the effect of the business from COVID and all that. But when I wake up in the morning, my goal is like win immediately. I don't hit snooze. I'm out of the bed in like 3 milliseconds. I don't let the alarm have a victory over me. I wake up, I have certain things to do to take care of the dogs, get the tea ready. And the morning has always begun with taking care of somebody else because I feel like that's my role. We got 3 dogs. I make them breakfast. Then I get my tea. Then I'm downstairs writing and working. But before all these special breakfasts for the dogs, I took a lot of pride in making breakfast for my kids. And that was the thing that drove me in my late 20s to get out of teaching and coaching and running a business and doing 20 different things because I wasn't having breakfast with my family. And so a guy asked me once, a business coach was like, what do you want? And I said, I just want to have breakfast with my wife and kids. He's like, that's it? He's like, that's all you want? I'm like, dude, it's a knife in my heart. I wake up, I work. Before I go to work, I leave. I come home, they're already sleeping. I go, I'm working all the time. I go, I just want to have breakfast with them. And so that's always meant everything to me. I pack the lunch at night. So when I wake up in the morning, number one is like win, victory over everything. Like it doesn't matter. That saying, nobody cares, work harder. That's what I feel. Nobody cares if I'm tired. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I got responsibilities. And so there is no excuse. I have to wake up. I have work to do online. Then I get my tea. I do a little work. Then I zip to the high school I coach at. And so also with coaching, it just means every year, and somebody told this to me, and you'll feel it because you've been in the game longer than I have. A wrestling coach commented on my Facebook. He said, Zach, he saw I shared a memory of an athlete that we lost. And he goes, Zach, this is the tough side of coaching. He goes, when you coach, as long as you're coaching, he goes, you're going to lose kids. He goes, you'll lose some kids because they go to another gym. You'll lose some kids because they'll transfer to another school. You'll lose some kids because they just quit the sport. He goes, then you're going to lose some kids to murder. You're going to lose some kids to cancer. You're going to lose some kids to like getting stuck in the middle of crime and go to prison. And he's like, now you're starting to lose kids. He goes, in the beginning, you just lost a kid who went to another gym or quit sports. He's like, now you're old enough where you're losing kids to, deeper things. And so now I coach differently. I go about just what I do differently. And at the end of the day, the goal is, can I make my wife and kids proud? I know I'm not perfect, but I'm always striving to be better. Coaching just makes me a better human. I think without coaching, I wouldn't be, it's not me giving to them. I'm getting so much from them, as you know. But that morning time is like, be tough. I don't care how tired, how cold I am. And where does that come from? Where does that really come from? My wrestling coaches taught me that like, you don't have to like it. You don't, kind of wrestlers, we thrive. And, you were from Missouri, which is a top wrestling school. And so when we're hungry, tired, sore, like that is our normal, to me, that's normal. And I feel like if I cannot hold that line, I'm letting my coaches down. My head wrestling coach passed away a few years ago. And so I just feel like it would be such a disgrace to lose what they taught me. And I will be honest, like, to me, I know you're big with like the mental and the emotional health. I don't think that's the healthiest thing as a coach. I think as strength coaches, especially the college sector, the work that we put in, the hours we put in, I don't feel it's healthy for family or life. And, just every time I see your Instagram, Dr. Coach Pat Ivey, no joke. I say to people, I'm like, man, I need to probably segue into some form of administrative role so I can be a voice for coaches who are getting overworked, because it doesn't just mess up the coach. We got the trickle down effect of what it does to their family. And a coach posted the other day, I think in the National High School Strength Coaches group, he had the ring with his wedding band, and then he had all the rings with, championship rings. And he goes, don't forget about the most important ring when you're chasing these rings. And so what do we do in the college sector? First guy in, last guy out. I'm doing a lot of that now because I have to, but I want to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And people spend a lot of time talking about the mental side, well, the emotional health and self-care. And well, hard times hit. What are you going to do? I mean, as an athlete, if you want to be a starter, you want to play, and someone's better than you, like, what are you going to do? Like, you got to work. Like,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I know, to me, that is the great equalizer, is work. And whether it's work with my body or work with my mind, I have to be working. I was talking to my dad one day this week, and I'm fortunate to still have him because he's had his health complications, retired, and then he went back to work, and because he was a truck driver. So
Yep.
he reminded me that, he's in his 70s, and he has a dump truck that he still drives, and someone asked him if he liked to continue, if he liked to work. He got excited about it. Like, yeah, I love to pull a few loads. And my mom and sister are like, no, you can't do that. Like, and I'm like, Dad, go for it. That's what makes you. I said,
Yeah.
you know how to be smart about it. He said, yeah. He said, I'm not going to do what I used to do, where I leave before it's dark and I get back home when it's dark.
Oh yeah.
And I just went, did you really? I'm just thinking, like, I don't remember that, but that is what he did. That's what I saw growing up. And for me, what was the strength coach job? Man, I took pride in leaving before when it was dark
Yep.
and getting back home if it was dark. That's what I knew. That's what I
What do
saw.
you think about that schedule? Because I've spoken to guys who are in it now, guys who used to be in it. To me, it's heartbreaking because I don't know if that's what we really should be doing or even need to do. But what do you think about it?
Well, I'll tell you what we tried to do, and we did a really good job. My staff held me accountable. They used to ask me, "You need to leave. We'd like for you to be the first one to leave." I'm like, "What? You know, if I'm the director, why should I be the first one to leave?" I said, "So we can leave. Like,
Mm,
go home." It's like, "We like for you to sometimes go home and be the first one out of here. Go be with your family. It's good for us in many different ways. A good example, you don't need to be here. We've got it. Let us just relax with you not being here." Just so many different reasons. And it was uncomfortable to think like here, everyone's car, we're all parked next to each other, strength and
yep.
conditioning staff. And I'm going to get in my car and leave first. Like, oh man, it took it. I never got that right. Never got it right. But I can tell you something we did do right is we had an environment where um, our dining hall situation where we could actually have our families up. We would try to do it once a week. They would come and
Nice.
have dinner, and kids get dropped off from school, and then they're in the offices climbing the
Good.
ropes in the weight room.
Yes.
I don't know how much you can do all of that now,
Right.
but we were doing it. Our kids were playing with each other, making movies on iPads in the
Yeah.
offices, and dry erase marker on the dry erase
Yeah.
board. So
That's the way.
we tried to incorporate them during the summertime. Come to work with us. You're going to get up at 4:30 in the morning, 5 in the morning,
Yeah.
and they loved it. They loved just
Yes.
hanging out. Bring your pillow, bring your blanket.
Right. Take a nap on the beanbag. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we did that as much as possible. So I feel good about that. I feel
That is
good.
good.
As they got older, I got memories from when they were 5 till 15,
Yeah.
of being around, and even memories of my oldest daughter almost being an intern. So getting to that point, to go from climbing up the rope, running around the weight room, to making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and for the
That
athletes.
stuff you can't listen. Let's say that stuff what couldn't happen or didn't happen.
Mhm.
When I look, if that stuff can happen, I basically say, like, how much money can somebody pay me to miss dinners, to miss, if I'm in wrestling, same thing in football. If you're in the playoffs, man, like you're missing Thanksgiving or or Christmas, and how much money is it worth to miss that? You really, I mean, can you pay somebody? It's got to be life-changing money where it offers up some serious freedom to the rest of the family. But that's not really the case in the college sector. The thing, did a podcast today where we're talking about the differences of high school and college. And I said, the thing that broke my heart in college was we build these multi-million dollar facilities. We put the premium on things, on stuff, but then we don't invest in the people. We got people with master's degrees. Some of these strength coaches are damn geniuses,
Mhm.
and like they're making an average salary that if they were in another sector with a master's degree and that kind of experience, they'd be at the top of the food chain.
Mhm.
And so that breaks my heart about our
But
profession.
coach, let me give you one experience, a
Yeah.
different perspective on this.
Yeah.
So we had a coaching change. So I found myself not coaching anymore. And I had a job on campus working in the chancellor's office, and wearing a suit and tie and doing the best I can. I'm learning about leadership. I am learning a lot. I'm learning how to have conversations with people at certain levels and chancellor's levels and president levels and things like that, things that I find very valuable today.
Yep.
But it was so different than coaching. Don't underestimate the power of your loved ones seeing you do what you love every day.
Wow.
Don't underestimate that. Because here I was able to have breakfast every day and home for dinner every day. But it took me 30 minutes to get dressed for work. Took me another 30 minutes because I have to come home. If you're wearing a suit and tie, you got to hang it up nice.
Yep.
You've got to do certain things. You got to get your collar stays and all that stuff ready for the next day. It took me so much time to do that. And I just remember wearing the collar shirt, just the tension, just because of wearing a collar shirt, just my neck just being just forward just a couple of degrees, the tension and the stress that I could feel. I remember coming home and I take the shirt off and be like, oh wow, can't believe that. Well, my kids, they know what it used to look like when I was waking up or when I was out the house or when they saw me at work and running around and blowing the whistle and grabbing the stopwatch. They know what that looked like. And they saw Dad doing what he loved doing, his purpose, his passion.
Yeah.
Okay, now Dad is doing a job that he kind of has to do to keep the family there.
Yeah.
That had an impact on the family. And I realized, I said, oh, wow, I thought me being away was taken away, but I underestimated how much it mattered to them to see me doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So what do now you are in a administrative role, right? But you're in athletics heavily, right? Health, wellness for all staff members, all student athletes. That's a pretty unique role. It sounds like something new. I don't know of any other universities that have somebody like that. I mean, I've heard of kind of like coaches are doing strength and conditioning, athletic training, nutrition, but not, at your level. So did you create that position?
I did not. Tina Murray, who used to be here, we actually were working together on a task force to propose some sort of model to the CSCCA. She was commissioned by Dr. Stiggins, to come up with, to form a task force to come up with some ideas. And so we had a lot of conversations. So I was on her committee, and a lot of things that we were doing, we were working towards this. We had the resources, and our athletics director believed in what we were doing 100%. He started his career, Mike Alden started his career as a strength and conditioning coach. A lot of people don't know that. Like he's put out so many athletic directors. I don't know if you can count them all on two hands. But he loved strength. He would tell me, he said, I want this strength and conditioning department to be nationally known and recognized.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, whatever we got to do to make that happen. So we were able to do some things that prepared me for this role.
Right.
But that job on campus probably prepared me more than even coaching.
What the previous job you're saying?
The job, the one that I wore the suit and tie every day.
Prepared you more?
Prepared me more for this role.
Why?
Because I had to learn how to communicate. I had to learn how to communicate in a way that wasn't like a strength coach. And as a strength coach, you know how we have to communicate. Hey, over here now. Like, that's all you have to say. Hey, you come here now. Like, well, when you're in an administrative role, you don't do that. Hey, you come here now. What are you doing? What are you thinking about? Are you kidding me? Like, no, you cannot say that.
Yeah.
And then the emails or the text messages, you text the player like, where are you? Like, you better get here right now. Like, you can't do that. And it sounds obvious,
Yeah.
but it is not so obvious when you've been doing something for 20 years, when you've been communicating a certain way for 20 years, written wise, email wise, text, phone call, face to face. Like,
Right.
you have to learn how to communicate. And it's like, wow, I gotta be like feel like I have to be the nicest guy in the world. Yeah, you do. You can't fire off that email and people just give you a
You
pass because
can't
you're.
choose a side. You have to like stay in the middle and hear always both sides and find a way to make things work.
And you, as a strength coach, you're used to letting your emotion fuel you.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, not when you're in
Which
administration.
yeah, that is the worst, right?
That's the
Emotion.
worst.
I've said that's often my
Yeah.
weakness is I'm so emotionally driven. Years ago, a buddy of mine said, Zach, stop treating your gym like you're in some emotional relationship with your first girlfriend. He's like, you get so emotionally caught up. I've gotten much better at not so like just focusing on what is best for the kids, period, end of story. And that's what guides me.
Mhm.
But do coach, you think it's should I mean a lot of strength coaches we see, how many of them are still strength and conditioning in their 50s? Is there a
Not many, right?
why? What I mean, what happens and what
Ah,
should they be doing career-wise? I often say when something's not going the way I think it should, this is what I say to myself now, and I'll say it to others too. I go, I just blame me because I'm not an administrator. Complaining does nothing. I need to find a way to get into a place of better influence where, like, your athletic director was a strength coach.
mhm,
Now it makes sense. He understands that, you know, the way you guys coach,
mhm.
how you do it, the little nuances, the intricacies are different than somebody else. It's not all the same. And so I want to be able to really pull for a strength coach and have them just living good versus the struggle I see. So is it important for strength coaches to move into administration, and what is the way to do it? I'd love to actually know.
Most don't know how to do it because they start preparing too late. And I think it was 2012, maybe. Uh, my athletics director at Missouri, Mike Alden, sent me to the Division I AD conference. I was, as far as I know, the first strength and conditioning coach to ever attend that conference
Why did he send you there?
because he knew, because he didn't look at people in the role that they're in.
Mm,
It was leaders to him. There were managers, and then there were people that get stuff done. And if you were a leader, and he didn't choose who were the leaders. Like, leaders were people that wanted to be leaders. If you he would have meetings. We called it I forgot. It was a leadership type meeting, and it was come if you wanted to come. It was once a month, and if you wanted to show up, great. If not, we had grounds people there. We had equipment. Like, if you thought of yourself as a leader and you want to rise up
yeah,
and be a director or athletics director, then you were welcome to show up.
nice.
They didn't look down on us like, well, you just came out from cutting grass.
Hmm.
It wasn't like that. So that was powerful,
That
to
is.
be. And then we read a book called "You Don't Need a Title to Be a Leader," and that's a powerful book because you don't need a title to be a leader. And that was his thing. That was he knew that I wanted to be. Well, my title was assistant athletics director, so I had a chance to. A professional team offered me a job, and then I had conversations with Missouri, like, I want to continue to build this, and part of that was becoming assistant athletics director. So I talked to people like Jeff Mad Dog Madden, other
Mhm.
people. There were a few other people that were athletics directors. Said, how did you do this, and what does it mean? And for me, I was involved in the leadership meetings at that point. There were once a week, Mondays. at a certain time, and I would show up, and
What
we
did you
go.
guys talk about?
So we go around the table, and you give any bullet points or notes from your area. And so I learned how to speak about strength and conditioning and nutrition because we worked together. So I would talk about, there were very few people that represented what was happening with the student athletes. Most of the time we're talking about tickets, budgeting, fans, alumni, marketing, sports information. Uh, we're talking about the business of running the athletics department.
Right.
So for me, so I picked up a lot, but I also had a chance to share, to make sure they had a connection with what was happening on the ground, on the, right there on the ground with us as, strength and conditioning, athletic trainers, sports nutrition. So that was learning how to speak in those meetings, learning how to be concise with your messaging, learning how to communicate that way. I was an assistant athletics director for over 10 years. So attending those meetings and being developed in that way, I always knew, I think being a college and a professional athlete, I realized there's only so much time. Like you said, when you go to the conference, how many 50-year-olds are still doing this? I realized, just like in the NFL locker room, there weren't many people in their 30s in the NFL locker room. Well, what do they do when they're done playing? There weren't many strength coaches in their 50s, not many in their 40s. So what's happening? What do they go do when they're done coaching? And
I don't know what some of these college guys do in their 40s, where if they're not in it anymore.
At best, if they still want to be around the sport, they have the opportunity to go to maybe drop down some levels, because there's some really good Division III, Division II jobs.
I just saw Mike Gentry took a job at, I think, a D2 or D3 school.
Yeah.
That guy's a legend.
Yeah.
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 So it's like some guys don't want to leave it. I love being in athletics. I love being around students. I loved my experiences at the college level. I'm at the high school now. I've taught at an elementary school for 12 years. I love the elementary school, So that's the tricky thing, is sometimes I'm torn. I just want to make people happy.
Well, we don't hear about people doing what you do, because it's all about what gets posted in USA Today, the salaries of the top strength and conditioning coaches, and that's the conversation.
Right.
But you talk to strength coaches that are in high school, they're loving their life. They're loving it. And so
these kids I'm lucky though. I'm in a good, these kids are good, but then that's the flip side. If we go back to that little part earlier about me waking up, working, showing my kids that this is a tough time and you got to be tough. I'm not going to lie to you. You got to be tough. Like what you said earlier, Pat, when you tell a kid, look, man, if you want to make it on this team, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to fight for it. But you've been in the college sector and you've been in the pros. You've seen, especially probably, I feel like once 2010 happened, what happens when a kid ain't making the lineup? They transfer out rather than maybe 1% say, you know what? I'll work harder. I'll figure out a way. I'll earn my spot versus, you know what? I'm not getting playing time here. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to teach my kids, you have to be ready to fight, because I think you and Kaz spoke about this at your Summer Strong, how you guys grew up. And now look, I didn't grow up, the place I grew up was tough. I mean, I got punched in the face by the time I was in second grade. I had my bike stolen in third grade in front of my face. We want our kids to not go through that because we're afraid, but then you're in a place it's so nice and you're like, damn, the tough time is what made us. Nobody's punching him in the face. Nobody's stealing his lunch. He's not. Why did I go home and start doing push-ups? Not because I wanted to look bigger for girls. I was like, man, somebody's going to kick my ass and I better be strong. I better fight back. And so I ran out of fear. I did push-ups out of fear. There's no fear in my town. My kids don't have to fear nothing. They're not fighting for milk, is what my buddy says. That movie Cinderella Man, he had all the concussions, and they're like, look, you got to hang it up. He's like, I'm fighting for milk. My family needs milk.
Yeah. I that's a tough one for me, Coach. Because I think about that too, the environment I grew up in, but it was also traumatic. But it also prepared me for what was hard and adversity and those challenges. But it broke some. It broke some as well.
No doubt.
And then you have some success, and then you move to a nice little country suburb like I'm living in here, and I'm always thinking, what are we still teaching the right values to our daughters? And I have to. I'm always questioning that, but at the same time, I think, would I want them growing up in a place where they have to sprint home from school because of they're not sure what
fear? Yeah,
out of fear. But they're going to face something, right? They're going to face something. So I think it's our jobs to make sure that we're still teaching those values, no matter how the lesson is taught. We still have to teach the values, and so that's believing in yourself, telling the truth, doing the hard thing, being honest, making the tough decision. Make sure you pick the right friends to hang out with. Just that's the only way I can, I guess, make myself feel okay with everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're doing our best, right? That's what I was saying. Am I doing my best? So, Pat, now you were strength and conditioning coach. You've played in the NFL. But you're at Louisville, high level athletics. So there's pressure on there. What from here, you're in an administrative role. What would you recommend? Because I know I have listeners who are in their mid 30s, 40s, 50s, who are in strength and conditioning, but I don't think they realize how fast the next 10 years is going to come. And they might, you said, some coaches try to get into administration too late. So somebody like me, I have a master's in health education. That might allow me to do some administrative work at the college sector. But what does should a coach kind of make him or herself more well-rounded and the ability to pivot if they need to? What should they do?
There are so many classes now and courses that are online. Good friend of mine who's been in the business for 30 years is working on his master's degree. So he hasn't been in
what masters. What is he going to get?
So it's a master's degree at University of Missouri. I'm still an adjunct professor there, so I teach a class in Foundations of Sport Performance. But the degree program is positive coaching and leadership.
Oh,
and it's a really good program. It's one of the top programs in the nation.
What's it called? Positive coaching and leadership?
Positive coaching and leadership.
That's the master's program.
Yeah, that's the master's degree program. And it's one of the top in the nation. And very reasonable, very affordable.
Yeah.
So I think just education, even the pursuit of education, I think is important. Whether someone actually completes the master's, I think the pursuit of learning and growing is important.
How did you get your PhD? What is your PhD in?
It's in the School of Education and Counseling Psychology, and my emphasis is sports psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome. It was really cool experience. Our director of sports psychology, Dr. Rick McGuire, was the track coach there for 27 years, and he was a doctor. So he was just that role. He was the first doctor coach I've ever met.
Yeah.
And he is Dr. McGuire since the day I met him. I called him my Yoda, Like
Mhm.
any question, he could figure out any question. Like you could talk about the most complicated situation. He had no idea what you were talking about. And by halfway through of you, he would understand what you were talking about. And you were probably halfway through explaining it. And he had the answer. So for me, I was like, man, if I have a problem or a puzzle, that's who I go to. Eventually he's like, Pat, we teach this stuff in class. He knew he was transitioning
Right.
from being the head track coach to being the director of sports psychology, the first one in the athletics department. And so he was lining his pieces up. He knew how he wanted to do things. So he he convinced me to take a class. And the next thing you know,
You're in it.
I'm in it. And
You're
and
in
for
it.
me, I said, if I'm going to start something, I'm going to finish it.
Right.
And it was tough. It was not easy.
I can imagine. They say the thesis is what stops, 90 something
Yeah.
percent from getting
Yeah.
their PhD is
Yeah.
people are like, you know what?
Yeah.
I ain't doing that.
They call it ABD, all but dissertation. ABD. And it's
What
tough.
what's your day look like now working in this administrative role?
No day is the same. Today, I went to the football facilities. I spent all morning with Mike Siriano and the football staff, football strength and conditioning staff. He had a visitor coming in town, another strength and conditioning coach wanted me to come by and hang out. So that's what I did all morning. I checked emails. I had a Zoom call, a Zoom leadership call. I took my call in the head strength coach's office, brought my laptop,
Yep.
did the leadership call for an hour. After that, I
What
went
did
over.
you talk about during let's back up.
Yeah.
Um, uh, what did they want you to kind of help with the guy who was visiting, the strength coach who was visiting? Did they want you to kind of guide through conversations? Did they want to ask you questions? What did they?
Well, Mike is a pretty awesome strength coach. Like he doesn't mind. So a lot of people would probably be threatened by having someone like me be around. He's the
Yeah,
opposite. He's like, you can't be around enough.
nice.
My office is your office. If put your bag down, put your coat. So that's a
Yeah,
pretty special situation.
that's
Um,
not the
not
it's
common.
unfortunate. Let's dig into that because a
Yeah.
high school football coach called me today. And first of all, that don't happen too often. But he's like, how come the kids that you train can train with me and train with you? He's like, because when they go somewhere else, the guy doesn't care what I do. He tells them they're going to do what he does. I go, because I asked the kids, what did you do? What are you doing tomorrow? And then I compliment what you do. I don't take away from it. And I say, they're kids. They got to be with their team. That's fun. I'm not going to, I don't, I'm doing I tell him, man, I
Yeah.
go, I'm like straight down. I'm on this side or that side. What's the best thing for the kids? That's what I'm doing. And he's like, it's just not normal. That's
It's
what
not
he was
no.
saying to me.
So you're talking about, and that's the same thing Mike has is ego in check, is
Love it.
being humble,
Yeah.
but being confident at the same time. You're
Yep.
confident. Like I know how to train these kids. I'm not going to come in here and blow them up. I'm humble enough to not put myself in front of them and what they're trying to do. Their experiences is
Yeah.
what should be placed up front. And
Yes.
so you got that confidence, you got the humility, you got your ego in check. That's rare in my experience. That's rare. That's so when we have a visiting strength coach and Mike says, hey, stop on by, he reminds me again this morning, hey, he's going to be here at 9. And it's a snowstorm this morning. I wanted to stay home and take my call in my basement.
Yeah.
But I said, I can't let him down.
Mhm.
He reached out. He wants me there. And that's pretty special when
Yeah.
you have that kind of relationship. Um, my first year, and I think this is worth me bringing up. My first year being in this position, I didn't know how I was going to react and respond because I wasn't the head strength coach. What am I going to do? And Mike asked me. He said, "Hey, man, what are you going to be doing on game day?" It's like, I don't know, hanging out in the suites with donors. I don't know. I don't know. I've never, don't know. No one's been in this position before. I don't know who to ask it.
Right.
No one knows what I'm going to be doing. He said, well, I could use you. I'm like, sure. He's like, I was like, what do you want me to do? He's like, I don't know. When the team gets there, just be in the locker room. Just be around.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, all right. I can do that. And now my wife was like, I thought you were done with that. I'm like, he asked me, what am I supposed to do? I mean, he asked. So the first game, I'm driving to the game. I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, hey, we got to leave 3 hours before kickoff. She's like, why? I'm like, team gets there 2 hours before kickoff. Like, I want to get there before they get there. And she's like, this is not the fun administrative stuff I thought you were going to be doing. You're right back in it. I got to get my game day mode on. I'm like,
Yep.
I don't know what else to do until I can figure it out. This is who I am. That's just what I am. So I show up, I'm in the locker room. I really don't know the guys because I really hadn't been, they've seen me around, but they're kind of like, who's that guy? But it was a good environment for me. I'm passing around Gatorades. Next thing you know, I'm helping guys put the shoulder pads on.
Oh, that must have been great.
Oh, so it was great. And then I was traveling with the team. And by that time I'm cleaning guys' shoes off pregame. I mean, I'm just in it.
Acting like almost like father, coach, mentor, you're
Yeah.
whatever they need.
Whatever they needed. Whatever
Yeah.
they needed. They needed a chest bump. They needed, hey, you got it. Whatever it was.
They need all that.
Yeah.
They need you cleaning their shoes. That might be like something that their mom used to do for them.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't have a mom.
Right.
And like that might mean a lot to them.
Yeah.
You don't know what's running through the mind of these kids until you get enough conversations with them that you start realizing that cleaning a kid's shoes off or just saying, hey man, when you're done, put your shoes like this. And they remember those lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah, man. So it's pretty cool. It was a good transition for me. But having those special people around, that's what makes it special, right? So
it's the right people. If you aren't around the right people, it's like you can be doing the same, job description, but it's always the people. That's why, it's
so
the people.
Let me ask you about that. Did you always know it was about the people, or did you hear it was about the people, and then was there a transition, or did you just get it from day one?
I did not get it from day one. I mean, this kind of topic has been coming up a bit with me, with people asking me questions. And so in my early years, what did I talk to the kids about? Winning. That's all I talked to them about. I mean, I don't recall. Maybe I spoke to them a little bit about school. Of course, I never encourage anybody to just be average at something else. But I spoke primarily about winning, be the best guy on the team, score the most, win the most, set the school record, blah, blah, blah. And I got into coaching very early, not strength coaching, but my freshman year in college, I was still 17 and I started coaching the recreation wrestling program. And that was a lot of kids. There'd sometimes be like 60 kids in a room. I was coaching immediately. I didn't get into strength and conditioning until about age 28, 27, full time. So 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 45. So I was in my late 20s. My early years was winning, talk about winning, but, always winning. And then certainly being a dad changed me, especially as my kids got older. And I learned to I started coaching so many kids, kind of like what I said earlier, from different walks of life. You never think a kid's coming from this town. They ain't got the money. A dad finds the money to take care of his son if that's what he wants to do. But one kid I trained was probably one of the best athletes. He had set the school record for everything: football, track, wrestling. He would even play tennis. His coach told him, play tennis for your footwork. Well, he got murdered. And I remember all I spoke to that kid about was winning. That's it. That's all I would talk to him about. I wasn't like, how's everything going at home? How are your school grades? And he was a quiet kid too. I mean, he was quiet, but I get mad at myself, for that. And so now I don't really talk about winning that much, to be honest with you. I don't talk about so much the points on the board of the game. I talk about how everything I talk about, I feel like it parallels something in life.
Mhm.
So I talk, of course, about academics. I talk about behavior in school. What does your classroom teacher think of you? I go, because that's more important than what I think about you. I see you here, but are you in the front? Do you hand in your assignments on time? Are you respectful? What about your social life? What do you do when nobody's watching? And then I also say, look, I'm not telling you I'm perfect. I'm not telling you to be perfect. I'm telling you to be your best, do your best and make decisions and think about things. And I also know that many of the kids I'm coaching at the high school level will not compete in college. And, I made mistakes when I was at Lehigh, communication mistakes, the way I argued with kids. I made a lot of mistakes at Rutgers, communication mistakes with kids, with, superiors to me. And so I learned from them. And you know what it comes down to, Pat, was my emotions. I'm so passionate about things that you got to be careful not to let that drive you. And what's interesting is 2 years ago, my daughter played basketball for the first time, and her school's basketball team is very good. And the coach, of a middle school basketball team said, listen, if you're heated up because your daughter didn't play enough or didn't score enough, he's like, sit on that email for 24 hours before you email me. Like, sit on it. Don't reach out. And so, don't come and hammer me and attack me. And so, I learned from that, and I try to learn from everything. And I learned from every podcast, and from, as we get older, you learn. And yeah, you hear people saying that it's not about winning. Well, look, if you're in a big university, trust me, if you're losing, that ain't good,
Right.
but you have to be everything for that kid at the moment he needs you. Like I
Mhm.
said, you were saying, I said, you got to be a dad. You sometimes have to take on a motherly role, even though you're a man, you need to
Mhm.
maybe take on more of a motherly role
Yeah.
in a certain circumstance or instance. You might need to mentor them. And what has hit me is some of the kids I didn't connect with too much, like at Rutgers, I'm now connected with them more.
Mhm.
Why? Because I'm not training them to win at wrestling. They call me and ask me about career stuff, girlfriend stuff, father stuff. And to me, it's like I've evolved, and they like that I've
Mhm.
changed and
Yeah.
improved, because they see, all right, man, Zach, he's evolved. He's not trying to still, do it this way.
Yeah.
And when they see you being willing to change, that's important. And look, some of these lessons, if we look at the Rocky films, like the stuff that Mickey taught Rocky and how he would mentor him and try to protect him, he tried to not put him in the most dangerous fights to protect him.
Yeah.
Even though he knew, but he was like, this is what's going to be best for his health, for his family. I got to protect this guy. Or then you got when Apollo has to take Rocky back to Tough Gym in South Central LA. Sometimes you got to take the kids out of that expensive weight room and take them outside where there's no equipment, and we got to sprint and do push-ups and just get back to being tough, and where we, come back to being pure. And so I think experience has been the greatest teacher to me. Being a dad has been the teacher to me. And then, looking back, you see your mistakes and you're like, man, I messed that up.
Mhm.
And look, to the coaches out there listening, you're going to make mistakes, but can you say sorry? Can you come back and fix it? Can you do better from it? And so also more, now we have more information. Some people take it for granted. I try not to. Like I'll read, Brett Bartholomew's Instagram. He talks a lot about these different forms of communication. That's still very, if I was probably late 20s, that wouldn't have really hit me, you know? But once I started working with kids who are struggling in life, that's when you realize, oh man, like this is just a vehicle for life. The weight room and strength and conditioning is just an opportunity for me to help this kid have a better life and teach them work ethic, character, leadership. And look, let's not lie. It's a bonus for us. We feel good doing good for other people. It really feels good. A guy asked me, like, what would you do if you weren't strength and conditioning? I'm like, I'd probably still be in a school, or I need to be part of a team. I know we get a lot of heat for being football coaches shouldn't be so rah, rah, rah. I'm pretty hyped up when I coach. And I was like that as a teenager. And that's why people wanted to train with me, because I brought the thunder.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't just sit against the wall and kick back. That's what I do. I light that place up. And I think that is important. That doesn't mean I'm not good at the skill of strength and conditioning, but I know who I am and how I am. And so I learned through a lot of mistakes. And the biggest mistake I really think is too much focus on winning. And then I would come across lessons. Like I heard that John Wooden at UCLA never yelled at the kids. He just said to them that winning and losing is an internal game. Like he would tell them that if they won by points on the board but didn't play their best, they didn't really win. Then he taught them how to put their socks on, how to tie their shoes. Those those little things that sometimes people don't think are important. It is important, man. Hey, double knot your shoes so they're boom, and come in with the shoelaces double knotted. Be ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so every experience and different coaching position I've had, and for the most part, I've been at, private sector, but the more experience I have, the more I learn. And I'm now a lot more flexible. I was crazy in my early years, Pat. Like I'd curse the kid out, I'd kick him out.
Yep.
And then I started learning, like, man, they're not, if you're a beast, you're not coming here. My job is to make you the beast. And you may not turn the corner for 3 months. You may not turn the corner for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I had a coach tell me that. I'm gonna say his name because I love this guy. This guy's awesome. Donnie Pritzloff. He wrestled at Wisconsin and coaches at Rutgers. He's the head associate. I could talk with that guy. I'd call him up sometimes to ask him a question. It was supposed to take 2 minutes, 5 minutes. We'd be on the phone for an hour, or we'd be done training. We'd be in the sauna talking about training and old training and new training for hours. And I remember he said to me, he's like, Zach, you never know when a kid could turn the corner. Mm-hmm. He's like, a kid could struggle and be a 5th-year senior. And then 5th-year senior, he turns the corner and he's your All-American. He's like, so you could never give up on a kid. He's like, because it's not every kid showing up is, boom, ready to go. And so the tough thing too is like you sometimes find, what did I do wrong? What, like that kid transferred out. What did I do something wrong? Could I have helped him more? And then sometimes the truth is, as much as we want to take responsibility, the truth is sometimes that kid did not meet you in the middle to make it work. That's the heartbreaking stuff, because even then you're like, man, is that the way it is? Not everybody could be the winner. Not everybody, there's one national champion football team. They're not all the champions. There's one national champion wrestler. Then the other 7 guys are all American. Then the hundreds of others, they got to do it, And so all of these experiences make me better. But being a dad and the experience of coaching, it's just constant learning, man.
Yeah.
What about you? What were you like in your early days, Pat?
Oh, man. I was hardcore. But I wrote down some things that as you were talking, that some stories that because I wanted to stay engaged with what you were talking
Okay.
about. My first year being a director, I was had been an assistant for a couple years, and I was going to Tulsa. They had went 1-10 the year before I got there. I got there in the middle of two-a-days.
What
And,
conference is that?
then it was the WAC. It might be. Then they moved to Conference USA. I think they're the American Conference now.
Okay.
Um, but they went one, and so here I am. When I got there, I remember thinking, I know how to train athletes. My first year, 1-10, I'm going to come here and have an immediate impact. We went 1-11. It's like we got worse. we got worse.
Oh,
So
man.
now there was a coaching change. I stayed around,
Yeah.
and that next year we had the largest turnaround in the nation. Went 8-5. Went to a bowl game for the first time in 13, 14 years. But that taught me. That was important. That humbling experience, that was important.
What
It
did
was
teach
not
you?
about me. It was not about me. Not about me. It was about the work that needed to be done, and collectively what we could accomplish. So so that was important. A few years later, when I get back to Missouri, you talked about something unfortunate, losing athletes. We lost a football player, and that was on my watch. And I remember driving home. That was a rough day. That was a rough day.
In training, it
in
happened?
training. It was during the summer. It was tough. And I remember, and then the football coach, it was during a time when he and the athletics director were on vacation. And so I'm having to explain over the phone, what happened. And I remember he said, did you treat him like he was your son? And I said, Coach, I did. And I really believe that. I said, I really did. He said, well, that's all I asked. And that was it. That was no more, didn't question, didn't doubt. And and from then on, I said, let me make sure, and not just me, but everybody on my staff can say that they treated every one of these young men and young women like they were their son or daughter.
Oh, man.
So,
When did you, because I have that same mindset, but I
yeah.
didn't always. When did that kick in of like, pretend this is my own child?
I think because of my experiences and some of the coaches, I had some really outstanding coaches in my earlier and little league, high school, college, not so much. Professional, I had a couple that were one that was really cool, and then a couple that were just jerks. And I just thought, what kind of experience do I want the athletes who are coached by me to have? So I was, yes, about the winning, but I kind of went into it trying to not be a jerk.
Yeah.
I was hardcore. I was tough. I would get in your face. I would, throw kids out, but I would do it all in the name of love, which
Me
I
too.
would learn later that there were better ways to do it.
Yeah.
Especially when I was in school and I started studying sports
Yeah.
psych and realized, oh, wow, I don't have to yell to get that result. I don't have to get mad to get that result. I don't have to let my emotions control me to get that result. Like there's tricks that not tricks, but seem like tricks when you don't know any
Sure.
better. But there are ways and strategies, methodologies, skills that I needed to develop. And when I started doing that, we had a quarterback named James Franklin. And he said, Coach, man, since you've been teaching the sports psych stuff and it's the stuff you've been going to class, I've seen some growth in you. Like you're lucky, because the old me would have been so offended by that I might have kicked you out of this weight room. But the new me goes, what do you mean by that? Well, coach, your whole demeanor, your language. He said, I commend you on the improvement of your language.
Nice.
So I remember I would teach the players that as I was learning it, that was the trade-off. Head coach wanted. He's like, if you're going to go and do these classes, like I want us to benefit from it. I said,
Right.
absolutely. So I would teach these classes. We called it mental conditioning, and so I'm using these sports. I'm teaching them these concepts, and I'm using sports analogies and sport examples.
Right.
And so they're buying it. But then they start realizing if I use this stuff in class or in my life. So they told me, they said, Coach, we appreciate the sport analogies and the examples, but can you talk about how this stuff applies to life? Because we are using it in class too, and it's helping us. And I went, yeah, I can. I get it. I get it. So, so yes, I can do that. Appreciate that. Thank you for the feedback.
College kids are sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they pick up on stuff.
They pick up on stuff. Yeah. And, there was one point I remember when I was an assistant, before I ever became a director, Coach Pinkel came in the weight room. He was like, hey, how are things going? It's like, yeah, Coach, it was a rough day. We had a couple guys, not make the times and this, that. And he just looked at me and he's like, and I'm the assistant strength coach. He gets ready to walk out the weight room. Then he comes back and he's like, that's why you coach. And then he walked out. I was like, wow, I was making excuses.
He didn't give you the speech. He said just enough. When you're like a seasoned coach, you start talking a lot less and you let people hang on your words, think about it, figure it out. You start saying things like, put your feet 1 inch wider, hey man, grip the bar tighter. Like you just say a little thing versus like this, like hip position, chest. You start talking so much. He goes, that's why you coach. Yeah, you got to make people think. And if they give you all the answers, that's why, when you said treating that player like your son, the athletic director asked you that, Kurt Hester, a friend of ours, he's got his book, Confessions of a Strength and Conditioning Madman. He's got this assessment. And so I was like, I might go up and assess my coaches at the other facility. And I'm like, I don't want to like hover over them. I want to give them freedom. So I said this to them. I go, make pretend. I go, you don't have kids. You guys, you're not parents yet. One of our coaches is a mom. But I said to our head coach there, I said, this is what you're going to pretend. Step outside of your body. All right. Make pretend you're watching somebody else coach those kids. And those kids are your children. You're a dad now. What do you want that coach talking about? You want that coach saying good, nice, strong? Or do you want that coach talking about technique? You want that coach motivating? You want that coach to talk about how do you, how's school, academics, what you want them talking about life? I want you to coach these kids the way you want somebody to coach your future kids. And when I got to this high school a little over a year ago, I told the kids, I go, my job is to protect you. I need to protect you. The way I'm going to protect you is I have to get you stronger. I said, not just stronger with the weights, but stronger mentally and in life. And anything I'm telling you is exactly what I tell my kids. So if I'm tough on you, just remember it's because I love you. And you should be upset if I'm not tough on you, because that means I'm letting you go. Mm-hmm. But there are times where I say something simple like, here's what we're doing. I want you to train as hard as you want to win. And then I put it on them. Effort. Okay. And then we always close it out. And it's always about effort, consistency, showing up during these tough times, COVID, this and that. Mm-hmm. Look, we cannot let COVID break us and be the excuse behind poor performance in anything. I had a kid say to me like, He's like, man, it's hard getting out of bed and doing class on Zoom and da, da, da. And you know, when people say what's hard, dude, my first and middle name is named after my grandfather's brothers who were killed in the Holocaust. So
Mm.
whenever I think something's hard or I'm tired or I'm hungry, I say to myself, am I escaping the Holocaust right now?
Mm.
No, then it ain't that hard. And so that changing of their frame of reference, you know, is like, dude, this is actually the easiest year to get straight A's. It's easy to be doing these Zoom calls. You know, this ain't hard. And if that's hard, then life is going to kick your ass. And I tell them, I go, take your attitude, put it in me. You want me to coach you with that kind of effort and attitude? You want me to just do good today for you? What if I always tell them, I go, what if I go into the office today and I tell the principal, today, like, I'm kind of tired. I was just thinking I'm just going to do good. I'm just going to do good. Is that all right? They'd be like, get your ass out, go leave, go work somewhere else. We ain't got time for good enough. It doesn't matter how you feel. That's when you start realizing, like, man, in the beginning, we want to squat more, bench more, clean more. Then it starts like, here's one thing I want to ask you about, Pat. This is interesting. A week or two ago, I barely ever have to do this. I think like once a year I'll block somebody on social media. But like the past like 2 weeks or week, I must have blocked like and deleted like 5 people on Instagram and Twitter. And I was like, man, I could talk with anybody. If you want to debate, we can do it kindly. We don't got to, be rude or negative about it. But I was like, maybe I'm doing something negative, right?
Mhm.
But one of the guys that I blocked, like his comment that he had posted on Twitter was like, any coach that talks about buying is full of shit. It's like any coach that talks about buying means that like I can't remember the way he phrased it, but he's like, as soon as you walk in the weight room, if those kids don't buy in, he's like, that's because you're not big and strong. And I'm thinking to myself, well, damn, it's all about you then. You
Mhm.
don't it's not about the people that you're serving,
Right.
because it's not about how big your chest is or how big the deadlift is or any of that stuff, because that might impress them in the beginning. But if you don't connect with kids or people, you're working with adults, not just, young adults. You're working with, if you can't connect with them and they don't feel you genuinely care,
Right.
you're off, man.
Yep.
I don't, the word buy-in or whatever you want to call it, Brett, I always say, does the infinite better job at really breaking that down. But it was interesting to hear that a coach thought it's like respect and almost like obey me. I'm the biggest person in this weight room. And it's not that. The kids never asked me once how much I bench or squat. They don't ask me that stuff ever.
That's
What
crazy, coach.
what
That's
what do you think about this
yeah.
buy-in? Like, I don't know what proper phrase it is for that, but what do you think about it with not just athletes, but the adults you're working with?
Buy-in for me is about, so that's ownership, right? And so psychologically, there's a way to create that. Um, and if you want self-determined people, like people that they're self-starters, and you want them to be intrinsically motivated, like you want them to want it. You don't want them to want it because you said to want it or to please you or
Yeah.
mom or dad or high school coach. Like you want them to do it. So I learned about this thing called self-determination theory. And in that, if you can have athletes that are competent, and then you have relatedness. So if you develop relationships and help them to form relationships and have relationship with each other, so any team building activities, any sort of thing like that, you can sit down and get to know each other. And then the last one is autonomy. If you can allow them to have a choice in what's going on, now that doesn't mean
Yep.
they get to pick whatever they want, because
Mhm.
you're still there guiding. But if you say, hey, guys, girls, we can do A, B, or C, How do you want to get that done today? Now, if you've got relationship with them, if
Yep.
you told them what to do and why those choices can benefit them, and then give them choice, you've got athletes that are bought in, intrinsically motivated. There's ownership there, and they want to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
So if you could, so though that's for me, that's what I tried to do. Any way possible, make sure I was teaching. So I
Yes.
learned the phrase, before you coach, teach.
Hmm.
Relationship. So personality. If you can just show a little bit of personality, coach, that
Yeah.
goes a long way.
Yes.
If they can actually see that you enjoy coaching, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you're just happy-go-lucky. I mean,
Right.
sometimes you got to get down to business, and you're going to see
Yeah.
my mean face. You're going to see my game face.
Yeah.
Um, but if I can then say, well, if we want to continue on this path, then here are the choices. But if we want to go on this path, here are the choices. What do you want?
I like that. I used to never give choices, Pat. And if I'm looking back at these past few years, I give a lot of choices and a lot of options. And like you said, also game face. I saw that video. I don't think it's new. It's with Coach Saban, but his video said if you want to be good, we actually don't have a lot of options. It takes what it takes. And I think he's meaning your effort, your focus on building skills, your lifestyle choices.
Yep.
It takes what it takes, but I still give options, and each option is tough.
Mhm.
Each option
Right.
is tough, but you could also say at the end, we've been limited on time with training with COVID. I'll say, all right, listen, when you guys walk out, it's up to you if you want to close out or if you want to organize a little team practice. If you want to run 3 hill sprints and do push-ups or abs at the end, I'll leave it up to you. Some of you might have a ride. You might legitimately have to go. But some of you want to do extra. I tell them that
Right.
gives you that, but
Yeah.
that's right. Giving them that option and the autonomy, giving them choices. And I think I'm just a lot of thoughts coming, emotions. I'm thinking, how you mentioned personality. I remember when I declined a college offer, I cried because I wanted it. I loved it. I loved those kids. And I
Mhm.
cried that I was letting it go, And I just think how I love this stuff. And if you want this to be fun, you gotta give them the personality and share stories and learn them. It's weird. I'm older now and I'm learning so much about coaching. I think that's what excites me is I'm okay. I want to be around people. My thinking is to transition somehow, some way into administrative roles so I can help other
Mhm.
coaches
Mhm.
get,
Coaching coaches.
yeah,
Coaching
coaching coaches.
coaches. I love doing that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Because you have you have a situation where this coach is trying to figure something out. So not only are you trying to help the situation, but you're trying to help the coach. And that is, for me, I love that. I love giving
Yeah.
that advice. Hey, let me, and it's awesome to be at a place where it's received. It's received like, hey, can I give you some advice? Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
And yeah, I know we're going to wrap it up here soon, coach,
Yep.
but uh that I think what I want strength and conditioning coaches to do is to not be afraid to think about the future and prepare and have conversations with people about your future and start preparing yourself for your future. It don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until all of a sudden you find yourself in a transition without something to land on or a
What
direction.
what if we're guiding them? What should we be telling them Should they get a certain master's degree? Should they be applying for certain positions in the college level? What should they be looking at?
I, I think when you get that extra time, do some searches. Maybe you do like we have our athletes do some sort of occupational survey or analysis. Uh, Maybe do that. What like, relationships, the power of relationships, reaching out to different people and just having a conversation. Hey, when you think of me and my experiences, what do you think
Yep.
would be a good next step?
I just
Um,
had a conversation like that with a mentor.
yeah, just and where I was at Arkansas State, when this job first opened up, and there was a job at North Carolina as well, maybe one other school. I went to the athletics director and I printed off the jobs that were posted. I said, I want to continue coaching, but this is what I'm working towards. And I didn't have that conversation with the football coach. He didn't want to hear about that, but the athletics director did. And so he said, absolutely. So he knew at that point that, I love coaching. He could see that. I mean, you can come to the weight room, watch me coach, I love it.
Yeah.
But I also need to tell you that I've got other aspirations and things that I want to be prepared for. So it takes some courage to put yourself out there, but find some examples of what you think you might be interested in. And then,
Yeah.
and then you just have to find a way. I mean, it was not easy for me to have that conversation, even with as much experience as I had, because I knew the danger I was possibly putting myself in.
Meaning they would say, he's looking elsewhere. Let's just find a replacement right
Quite,
now.
quite possibly. Absolutely. And so you have to know the people you're working with and you have to present it the right way. Hey, I love what I'm doing, but I just want to have a conversation with you as one of my supervisors. Something that's interesting to me.
Yeah. If your supervisor cares about you as a person,
Yes.
they're not going to be upset when you leave. They're going to miss you,
Right.
but they're going to love seeing you change, pivot, grow, evolve, and move on to something that makes you happy. And that's also, an administrator is used to that. People come and go. They know that and they come and go in good ways. And sometimes they part ways in not such good ways. And the goal is hopefully that you part ways in good ways. So very good.
How you leave is more important than how you come in. Because you come in, you have a chance to correct any mistakes as you go along. People, there was a misunderstanding. When you leave, though, how you left impacts how if you can use those people as a reference or not forever.
Yes.
Forever. So how you leave is much more important to handle that with class and grace and empathy. When you leave, make sure you spend 10 times more, pay 10 times more attention to how you leave than how you first get to a job.
Yeah. I could have used that advice a couple years ago, as well as the advice of treat these kids. Hey, you're not a dad, but treat these kids like you are their dad.
Yep.
That's stuff that coaches need to hear, especially now.
Yeah.
Especially now. I did a lot of these Zoom calls, in the beginning of COVID when weight rooms were shut down, had a lot of the heart-to-heart conversations with some of these coaches who are young, who are, to us, they're kids, they're 26. I'm almost 20 years older than them. That's a lot of different life experiences.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, now we're going to have some heart-to-heart, this good stuff, dude.
Yeah.
We'll have to do another part 2, 3, 4, 5.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. You called me. You said, "Hey, coach, we said we were going to do a podcast." Like, yeah, man, whatever happened, it didn't happen. So let's make it happen. So
Yeah.
I know for your listeners and for my listeners, we're both going to have this on our platforms.
Yep.
And so for your listeners, I'll just tell them, you can find me on pativey.com,
Yep.
PATIVEY.com.
Yes.
And what about you, Coach?
Yep. I'm Strong Life Podcast. Go to zachstrength.com, ZACH strength.com. And just for my listeners, so you have your podcast goes on Sore Necks Be Legendary.
Yes.
You've got Beyond Sets and Reps, and you've got
Research to Reps Roundtable.
Research to Reps. So some really deep dive stuff. And then the strength and just a lot of great stuff. And people could also see your Sore Necks Summer Strong talk on their YouTube.
Yes.
Yep. And you and I are both working with Sore Necks. I mean, how long have you been working with Sore Necks for before even this podcast? When did you start getting their equipment?
Oh, wow.
What year? What's the first piece of equipment you got from them? Was it at a university?
Yes, it was. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. If it was maybe when I was at Missouri. So, I mean, we're probably going back almost 20 years.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
18 years.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah.
But as far as developing that personal relationship, probably going back about 15 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to know Pops, and
Yeah.
you know, that's who I really got to know. And then Bert came along, and he's just taking things up a notch from there. So really proud of what they've done. I was trying to decide who did I kind of want to partner with, and my wife made it real easy for me. She said, the people at Sore Necks are your kind of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was it. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That's it then.
I've missed the last few Summer Strongs. Hopefully I get there this year. But I've known Bert for a long time and Pops, but I would always be chatting with Bert, and I'd call him on his cell phone or whatever it was, and get all the equipment going. Started with him in my garage.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
18 years ago. So yeah, man, great people. And it's like, you and I have actually never chatted, but I feel like we could have chatted till forever. Yep. So that's a lot of Sore Necks people.
Absolutely.
Is you meet people, you haven't met them before, but it's like, you're like, man, I feel like you're my brother. Like I've no.
How did this happen? Like, how did we just met each other.
Mm-hmm.
This happened last week. We had the Winter Strong event. This one guy I never met, he's like, hey man, I love you, brother. It's like, we just met.
Right.
And I actually got to return a text. And so it's just, that's just pretty cool. The respect that, that women have that are Sore Necks women, the men that are Sore Necks men, and just the way that there's a respect between each other. I think,
yes,
we need more of that.
100%. So listen, my man, we'll shut it down.
Yes, sir.
This was awesome. Thanks to everybody for listening. And if it's on YouTube for watching, share it out with friends, leave a review, and visit our friends at sorenecks.com. Also, check out their Instagram. They're always sharing stuff. And what Pat was talking about, you can see Sore Necks. I think it's Sorenecks_outdoors. Right. For those of you that are into the outdoors. Some great stuff, man.
Yep. Yeah. You have a coach. It's been good. It's been real.
Been great, my bro.
Appreciate your friendship, and looking forward.
I can't wait to hug it out when I see you.
Absolutely. Yeah. You take care.
All right, my man. Pat, have a great night, my bro. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
You too. Take care, Zach.
Bye, buddy.
Bye.